you sucker!
Serp Garage with the full zoom out on the SVT-40. Yes, we're back with the SVT-40. We've had a couple of videos here. We featured it on the Secret Forest Range, which, in case you're interested, you want to keep up with the Serp Garage channel info. The Secret Forest Range has been sold. So we will not be back there again unless we're trespassing. So the SVT-40, what does SVT stand for? Let's try this. Samozaryadnaya Vintovka Tokareva. There we go. I think I did it. Which basically means Tokarev self-loading rifle in Russian. All right, so this thing was coming about in 1940. So, the Russians were well entrenched into war with the Germans already in World War II when this thing was coming about. And they were going to replace the Mosin Nagant as the frontline service rifle with this thing. And they were cranking these things out in 1941 to be able to do that. But the German invasion in 1941 put a hold on that, and they had to switch back to the Mosin Nagant. They weren't able to ramp up production enough to make this thing the frontline rifle. And it always was, after that, it was always kind of like a support rifle, like kind of bringing up the rear, even though it just goes to show you how awesome the Mosin Nagant was as a bolt action, that it had a semi-auto like this as its support rifle. But that is the case. And it's probably a good thing, because these things turned out to really not be as venerable as the Mosin Nagant. They weren't as bulletproof per se, you know what I mean? They were good, but who knows if they would have really ramped up production to have to rely on it that hard. Might have been not such a great thing. They just kind of didn't have everything all together yet for awesome semi-automatic rifles. For us to just fool around with and play with now is great, but under the duress of war and the asking it to be able to produce while being cold and frozen and without being cleaned and with crappy wartime ammo, not something that is conducive to a long life. So not as pampered as this guy would be right now. So let's get into it. We did the SKS just recently, and there's a very interesting connection here. The SKS is obviously its son. So this is the father, and the SKS would be its son, and that would make the AK-47. This is the AK-47's granddad. Okay, so this was the progression of things, but there were a couple of other rifles that we have to throw in there along the history that are part of this thing's, the reason why they were created, but not really so well known that people even know what the hell these things are. It all started, let's get back to the beginning. It all started in the 30s when Stalin, he was interested in semi-automatic rifles and wanted to have a rifle in the army that in the military that was semi-automatic. So in 1935, he held like a trial, an automatic rifle design trial. And the winning rifle was a rifle designed by Sergei Gavrilovich Simonov, who SKS guy that we just recently talked about a few videos ago. He was the winner with a rifle called the AVS-36. Now the problem with the AVS was that I'm really going to get into it too much here, this because like maybe one day we'd be able to actually do an AVS video. But just in a nutshell, it suffered from all the things that you'd expect that a rifle that didn't work would suffer from. It was overly complicated. It got dirty real fast, and it got dirt inside of it, and it didn't function well with that dirt inside of it, and other things. It just didn't work well as soon as it got cold. Any lubrication that these things had inside them like kind of seized up, and which might not actually be the rifle design's fault. It might have just been like the lube, the storage lube they were using or whatever. And when these things hit the front, because I think the first thing they were fighting in was cold stuff, like Finnish wars and stuff, and they failed miserably. Okay, so then Tokarev had this design. The design that he threw into the mix that wasn't accepted during those trials was the SVT-38. Okay, so the SVT-38 started to be cranked out. Now this design was a gas-operated short-stroke spring-loaded piston above the barrel with a tilting bolt. And there was some dispute, actually, as to who first designed this. Do you remember Dieudonné Saïve? Does that ring a bell? We were talking about the baby Browning, remember? He was Browning's assistant back in the day, and wound up, after Browning's death, to put that guy together and the Browning High Power. But he's also the designer of the FN-49 and the FN-FAL, which used kind of like the same principles. So there's some kind of thing over who borrowed from who there, and I guess we'll never know. But so out came the SVT-38 getting cranked out. It had a bayonet, a 10-round detachable magazine, open top receiver, so you could reload the magazine still using the Mosin 5-round stripper clips, which was pretty cool that they would still be able to use those. And it had a muzzle brake. They had sniper variants. It was pretty cool. But it had some issues. Wasn't really accepted well by the soldiers. They complained about its weight, magazines falling out, all kinds of stuff. So in 1940, after they made about 150,000 of these, they stopped production and they had an improved design. The improved design is this guy, the SVT-40. So it was lighter. It had a different, like a modified magazine release here. And if, I said this thing is the AK's great-grandfather, and you're like, what does this have in common with the AK? Well, I'll tell you, it's like these little things. It's like when you use it, you realize there's these little things that remind you of things, and you see where they get it from. You try to put the magazine in like an American magazine, it doesn't go anywhere. How does the magazine goes in? It hooks in the front and tilts up into place like that. That feels AK. So it's those little things like that that make you realize like lineage and stuff like that. So the SVT was more difficult to produce. So it's not like they were able to make as many. And it seemed like they just had like a constant struggle to be able to get enough of these things out there. That seemed to be like an issue during wartime, you know what I mean? And they had, they made like about 1.5 million of these things. So it's not like they were short on, it's not like at the end of the war they were short on making them. It just seemed that like year to year it was just a constant struggle. About 50,000 of these things were sniper variants also. So the issues with these things The SVT-40 had its problems. Also, they supposedly suffered from vertical shot dispersion. It was this big thing that the Army reported. And they were supposedly, they talked about that they were of flimsy construction. Difficulties were experienced in their repair and the maintenance. The original stocks, this one isn't, I don't think, but the original stocks were Arctic birch, which were prone to cracking in the wrist. So they would crack like right across here, right in front of where the trigger mechanism was. And they were all these fixes that they would do by like putting shims in here, birch shims in here, and all kinds of stuff, you know. But and they had these they had scope rails over here, which was really cool. See this rail? There's a rail on either side. They had scope rails, so just basically any rifle could be a sniper rifle. There was a thing you slid on here that had scope rings in it, and then there you go. Turned it into a sniper rifle. In 1942, they decided maybe we could make this thing fully automatic to help supplement the PPSH stuff and all the other, you know, like automatic rifles that they had out there. So what they did was they created a selector switch here. This is the safety. The safety would go straight down, would be safe. Basically, all it really did was just block the trigger from being pulled. And then you'd be able to switch it across into this recess here. This one won't go because it's not fully automatic, obviously. And then they would be fully automatic, these. And you could tell the stocks that the fully automatic ones had because they have this extra recess here. Now, those stocks were built sturdier. They weren't built out of that same Arctic birch, I don't think. I think they were built out of a different hardwood, a different Russian hardwood. And they had an A engraved on them. And there is, if you look really close, it's hard to see, but there is an A stamped into it right there. And they used those stocks during refurbs. So even if they took a semi-automatic rifle and they were refurbishing it, they would use those stocks because those were the stronger stocks, you know. So it's kind of cool if you look for one. Try to get one that has both of these recesses here so that you know you're getting one of the stronger stocks would probably be a good idea. But obviously this selector switch shouldn't flip over all the way over to the side. Otherwise you want to see if maybe one didn't fall through the cracks that fires fully automatic. You definitely want to be careful. A carbine version called the SKT-40 was designed in 1940 and submitted to a competitive test with the design of Simonov in the same year. So let's see, and it's an assault rifle based on a scaled down SVT. That was with a different round, was also produced in AT-44. But basically, it was the working on a smaller version of this, a carbine version of this, is what got Simonov back into the game with the SKS. You know what I mean? So how cool is that? That's why the SKS comes back into the picture after he was designing carbine versions of this. So to take a look at the whole rifle, we got the steel butt plate here. No provision for any toolkit or anything like that. This interesting sling, the buckles, you can't miss a sling like this. You'd be able to identify it right away. Again, here's those rails. Here's the stripper clip guide for that Mosin Nagant stripper clip that fits right in there. It's pretty cool. We'll take a ride through that territory in a little while. Magazine follower holds the action back. Has this interesting fold down tab here, which obviously they had some kind of problems with the magazine. So this fold down tab, I'm sure, has something to do with the fix that they came up with from the 38 to the 40. The typical rear sight, kind of like what you're used to here. You're going to see the date here when you go check them out. This is a 1941 example. There's a lot of 41 examples out there. This top one has this venting here for the barrel. It's kind of cool. This is very distinctive look here. And again, this sling with this buckle like this, very, identifiable. And this is this right here, this profile is easily identifiable as an SVT-40. See that these, I want to say newer, but this was the second design. The original design had many slats along here, kind of like, looks like the gill guns, the 22s that we've had, those kind of slats along here. But these are the later on, easier to manufacture one for the, I want to call it a muzzle brake. Supposedly it really worked with when they were fully automatic. And got a button here that removes the cleaning rod. The cleaning rod has like a interesting nub on it right there. Another easily identifiable thing is this cleaning rod that clicks into place there like that. All right, let's check out the loading and functioning of these things. And for that, we're going to use our realistic snap caps. Check out realisticsnapcaps.com. They are heavily endorsed by this channel. I love these things because I love to play with these guns, and live ammo and guns that work, even live ammo and guns that don't work are a bad idea. Just live ammo, period, is a bad idea. Messing around with inert ammo is a must. And usually that means messing around with like blue or red pieces of plastic. Like something that looks like this, you know what I mean? How fun is that? Not. So these things are awesome in the fact that they're like real ammunition. They have these soft primer pockets here, so you could dry fire on these things and protect your firing pins. And they're built robust for like years and years of cycling them, you know what I mean? But you can, check out the description down below. You get 10% off, free shipping, and these things are not that expensive. All made in the USA. Check them out. Now, you could use the Mosin Nagant stripper clip. They made it so they probably had so much ammo loaded on these that you could definitely use these stripper clips. But to be honest with you, I'm going to pull them out of here because I actually prefer at the range just single loading these, because you could just sit here and it's just so nice to just put them in. And not only that, if you want, you can detach the magazine and just have the magazine out, and just like you normally would just load a magazine, you could do that. Good luck on finding these, by the way. You'd be like, oh, it'd be so nice, I'm going to get an SVT-40, I'm going to get like 100 of those 10-round mags so I could just go and just shoot like 1,000 rounds uninterrupted. Good luck. These things, they're like 90% of the cost of the rifle is this magazine. And the aftermarket ones, from what I hear, are horrible. So I've wanted a spare for years and can't find one without knowing that I'll hate myself for buying it. So I just stick with the one I have. But at least this one you can easily pull out and just load at your leisure on the side, and then click it in here. It's kind of nice. And you want to talk about smooth operation? Look at how open and accessible also the bolt area is, the receiver. But for such a huge round, I mean, these things are like torpedoes, and they're not a mild cartridge by any means, and this thing just functions so smooth and beautiful. Look at it. Whoops, see, what would happen with a double feed if that got stuck in there? That's what would happen. Look how accessible it is to hold this back and get rid of that. And you know what I mean? Very accessible. And, yeah. Gotta love this thing. Gotta love it. What else do we got? Hey, let's get into it a little bit here. Let's take out the cleaning rod. Show you a little bit about how the action works, kind of like we did with the SKS. I liked doing that with the SKS. I like showing you guys. See, that there's people that respond. I think I'm being too condescending. I'm like, let me show you how this works, and that's people we know how it works. You know what I mean? But I think there's a lot of people that tune in and they're interested to see this. They don't really know. We could take off that. And we could take off this very easily. So that's the top parts here, okay? And we can get a look at what's really this, believe it or not, right here. It's just this thin rod right up here. This is what makes it all happen. It's amazing. There's a port in the barrel here, literally a hole that connects up into this cup right here. See, and this cup is like spring-loaded across the top here. This whole rod is spring-loaded across to here with this end of it sticking out right here. This is the whole, this is why they call it short stroke piston. Is because the bolt is traveling. How far is the bolt traveling to make all this happen? The bolt is traveling from here all the way to here, let's say. Cycle. However, the piston is only going like from here to here. That's it. That's the whole action of the piston. And what it does is it hits that bolt so hard. It's like going dink, that it makes its momentum is what carries it all the way back, ejects, picks up around, and comes back again. So it's just hitting it like that, dink, and making it go whoo, you know? And that initial punch to the bolt is done by the bullet starts way back here, and as it's traveling down the barrel, there's all this pressure behind it. And as soon as it crosses this hole, now the gases also go up this hole. And the bullet hasn't yet exited the barrel. The exit is, it's not all the way over here. It's actually right here. It's the end of the barrel. So when the bullet goes from my hand to my hand, from here to here, is where it all happens. During this section of barrel is where, as the bullet's traveling down, it's imparting gas here. Once the bullet exits here, all this pressure drops to zero back here. So this piston gets pushed by that gas and travels far enough to just push this out a little bit like that. And then it comes back, and the rest of it is all just momentum. If you can see that happening. So it literally just strikes the bolt. So it just takes that gas push from right here and just transfers it all the way back here. Pretty cool, right? And the bolt itself is interesting too, because you would say, well, how does it maintain the pressure in here to start pushing up here if this is opening? See, but it doesn't open yet. As the bullet's traveling down, it's obviously not opening anything yet. Now, there's an interesting bit of timing that has to go on here, because when the bullet passes this area here, it starts pushing. The gas starts pushing here. But what would happen if it started pushing and this immediately just opened up? If this immediately just started pulling back and opening up, all that pressure here behind it would be here, and it would blow out the side of the case. It could do that. It could blow out the side of the actual brass case of the bullet, since it's now uncovered. Or if it just was able to go back far enough to uncover the case completely, tremendous amounts of gases would blow back into your face because that high pressure that's here. So what does it have to do? It has to kind of delay the opening. So even though the bolt is getting hit and the bolt starts to move, we're going to get in there real close now, and we're going to look and show you what I'm talking about. Let me zoom in. Enhance. Okay, so you can see, hopefully my thumb won't be in the way here. Let's get a good position. Maybe I need to rotate around this way. Maybe that'll work better. Let me see. Now really, this is going to be a tough one for you guys. We need a weird angle here. You could see inside of here. I got to get a pokey. Hold on. I got to get something to poke with. Now, inside here, right here, that's the bolt. That's the face of the breech. See how it doesn't move right away? See how when this opens up, the cartridge case, you know what, that might actually help. Let's put one in there. Let's load one. Okay, so as that piston hits here and starts moving the bolt body, see that rim? That rim is still, you can see it, right? It's still right up against the breech face as it opens. And only when it gets to here does it now start bringing the round out. You see what I'm talking about, right? All the way to there, the round stays. There's the extractor right there in its little nest. This is the extractor right here in its little nest right down there. Its little recess in the barrel, and it doesn't start pulling that rim out. Through all of this travel right here, it's not pulling the rim out at all. Right there, it starts pulling the rim. So there's that delay there. And that delay is what prevents the gases from escaping until they're ready. That's a very careful timing. I know it only seems like a teeny bit of space, but it's very, very important. And sorry to struggle around with that, but I didn't rehearse it ahead of time. Now getting this in, it's not easy either. I think I got it. Did I get it? That'd be amazing if it's in both sides. Wow, did that pretty good. And then this goes in here. And we are officially back together. We're back together, baby. So that's the story. There's a little insight into how it functions. It's with these semi-autos. See, these are the beginnings of the semi-autos. This is what they were working with. You'd say, like, well, what's the big deal? So you harness some gas energy to move the bolt. That's what they did, so they didn't have to use the bolt action. It's more than that. The timing is so important. When you start opening this bolt, there's a tremendous amount of pressure here. If you've ever seen when the bullet exits the end of the barrel, that huge pressure cone that comes out like this, and it's like, it's so much pressure that if this started opening up too early, that brass case would never be able to handle that pressure. It would just blow out like that. Every single time you pulled the trigger, you would blast brass shrapnel into your face if it opened too early. And if it opened too late, it wouldn't have enough oomph to cycle to be able to do what work you needed it to do back here as far as loading and unloading. So it's very careful timing where you have to get, this has to start moving before it actually starts pulling the round out slightly. And that's where that tilted bolt design comes in. That bolt is tilting, it's just tilting back where you can't see what's going on. And I'm not taking it apart that far. And another element is this gas adjustment knob right here, where you actually adjust the orifice here. So that as this gets really dirty in here, you can imagine, because there's all gases blowing in there, so that orifice gets smaller and smaller. So if instead of taking it out and cleaning it, you just had a tool in your pocket where you could just crank this and open up the orifice further and further, that back then was something that was needed to keep it working for a length of time. But for you, you just find the spot where it needs to be, where the bolt isn't slamming back, and also where it's best thing to do is turn it down until you're not cycling rounds, and then just gradually open it up a little bit until it's cycling. And then you know you're right in the right spot. And then if you keep it clean, you'll never have to use that adjustment. And yeah, so that's the story. That's the SVT-40 killer. I do not have a bayonet for this rifle. I'm sorry. They are bayonetable, but I do not have one. So if there's someone out there that would like to donate their extra SVT-40 bayonet to the Mill Serve Garage, please contact me. I just have not been able to find one. That's a lie. I could find them. They're just, again, they're one of those things that's very expensive, and I mean that as a joke only. Hold on to your extra bayonet. You might actually need it. I think they're one of those bayonets that's reversed. In other words, they are the blade is on the top of it, I think, instead of on the bottom. I believe that it's one of those where there's two different kinds, something like that. If my memory serves me correctly. So yeah, so these things have been everywhere. You're gonna see pictures I have up there of like Finnish. I think they're from movies, but still, they're like, you know, were used in the Finnish Wars, the Continuation War. They were used in the Winter War and the Continuation War. Sorry, both, I think. And the Finnish loved these things. They captured a whole bunch of them and just made them their own. And then even the Germans, they what rifle was it? Was it the 43? The Gewehr 43 rifle was just a complete and utter bite of this thing. Absolutely. I mean, without a doubt. The Finns even tried to make their own, called the Tapaco. But they only made a prototype. They couldn't even do it. They couldn't even copy it, the Finns. They wanted to copy it so bad. But yeah, the Germans copied it without a doubt. It's plainly obvious. And yeah, everybody loved it. But it is the great granddad to the AK-47 and the father of the SKS. So much respect. But that's some round right there. This is not your 7.62 by 39. 7.62 by 54, is it again? I can't remember how could I not remember the Mosin round? By 54R. 7.62 by 54R. A legend. And since this ammo is so available, I mean, with all those like Mosin tins, the 7.62 by 54R surplus tins all over the place, you could have fun shooting a big bore semi-automatic rifle for you know, not that much money. So that's that. Somebody wanted to see the SVT, and I was ready to oblige. So shout it out. You want to see something, let me know. If I have it, I'll put it up here. And until then, sure I forgot something, but it is what it is. Let's just open it up and put a few more rounds, cycle a few more rounds through. You can never do this too much, can you? Gotta love it. SVT-40. See you all later.
Yes,
Just caught my thumb in there. That was incredibly painful.